Hello, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning from wherever you are listening to. Welcome to WAX Blockchain Meetup. So today we have a full house. We have Ross from EOSIO, we have Torben from EOSIO and Rewired, and we have Jona from Pink.Network. So it's going to be a nice session today. Well, thank you and welcome everyone for joining us. So let's see what's on everybody's mind. It's COVID-19, right? Everyone is at home, lockdown, and working from home. I was a ER physician for 17 years before coming into the crypto space. So I can understand the anxiety of all the people that's on both sides, from the doctors as well as the patients. Right? There is these are difficult times, but things will only get better. It can only get better from here. This is, I have never seen something like this in my entire life. It's like once in a lifetime event. Unfortunately, we got to experience this. It's the first time the whole United States has come to a halt. Everybody is under lockdown. It's the same for you, right, Jona, in Munich? Everyone at home.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the whole Europe as well, pretty much everywhere now, right?
And same for Ross and Torben too, I think.
Yeah, I've been locked down at home for 4 weeks. I haven't actually been more than a kilometer from my house in a month. And at the moment, my daughter's she's learning from home. Their schools are closed, and they're all doing their classes via video conference. And I'm doing all normal work from home via video conference. So yeah, it's unprecedented.
Yes, so it's important to keep in mind the things that they recommend. Wash your hands frequently, maintain the physical distance 6 feet minimum, go out of home only for essential things, like groceries, medications. Try to avoid coming in contact with others. Try to avoid spreading the virus to others. Stay at home and stay safe. It's only another 3 or 4 weeks, we should be reaching the peak. But those 3 or 4 weeks will be the difficult times. Once we go to the other end, once we cross this mountain, as they call, once we go to the other end, things can be better. So it will get better. We have to get through the next 3 to 4 weeks. So with that said, let's talk about WAX. So last month there were a few announcements. There was the TOPS partnership. TOPS, as some of you know, is a maker of the digital trading cards. And with this partnership, it's hopefully with people can trade and collect these digital assets. It was supposed to go live in March, but for some reason, the pandemic, I guess, and it's supposed to, hopefully it will be live this month, hopefully. And the second one that came out was the worker proposal. So let me share my screen. So we have the announcement of WAX Labs was the other big one. So it's the worker proposal system for WAX, and the first one was already approved, and that's the creating a hub for AtomicAssets. And Jona is going to talk about this in a short while. Congratulations, Jona, for getting the first worker proposal fund. But this is big news. So I hope to see many more great projects coming here. I think we're already seeing few. There is this Karma proposal, this WAX 2.0.
I actually didn't see that there were new ones. Okay, cool.
So it's I don't think the voting has been, maybe it's being done, but no, I don't think they've reached the threshold.
I know previously it was only coming up on the dash once they were approved, and we had to actually query the chain to see the status of all the other projects that were in there, because there were about 8, I think. There were about 8 that were submitted originally. Some of them are a little bit more crazy than others.
I think it will be a success. We just have to give it some time. People will get used to it. Right? And then the third one was this big announcement with the Chainlink partnership, but this was announced before this that incident with the MakerDAO and the DAI, where these Chainlink oracles were frozen, or they could not provide the feed. So I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I think it's a step in the right direction. It never hurts to have good partnerships with lots of projects. Chainlink is a big project. It has a good market cap. There is a lot of people invested in that project. So with our WAX partnership with Chainlink, maybe we can get these oracles onto the WAX and see how things go. But it's going to take some time, I guess. So this integration is not going to be easy. What do you think, Russ?
I think that you always need more than one oracle. I think you need multiple feeds. I think even on mainnet, EOS mainnet, there's probably 4 of them or so now. I know that we actually both doing some feeds at the moment. But yeah, I think it's important to spread the load so you're not reliant on one specific service. Absolutely.
And then we introduced a Telegram bot. Did you see about this, Russ?
Yeah.
So this is a Telegram bot that creates free accounts. We deployed a smart contract maybe in January. It was similar to the sign up. It's called Sign Up Wax, where you can create a free account using. The smart contract will create a free account for you. This is the smart contract for that. Sign Up Wax. So this Telegram bot uses that smart contract to create an account. You had to send wax to that, but we are funding the first 1,000 accounts. So anyone who wants to create a free account can have the free account. We are providing the wax tokens required for the first 1,000 accounts. So for this, it's fairly simple. You have to join this Telegram channel. That's the Wax Meetup, Wax Blockchain Meetup channel. And once you're there, this bot, it's a simple command. It's this one here. So we have the new account. That's the first command. And then followed by the account name, then a public key. And then it will create the account for you. The interesting thing, when we released this, was it maybe 2 days ago, we got attacked by bots.
Yeah.
It was so the bots started creating lots of accounts for themselves, and then we had to turn this off. And but it's important. These type of attacks are important because that's what makes this the software stronger, right? So we had to turn this off and then figure out a way to patch this. We installed the Shieldy. Shieldy is, as you know, is something that prevents this spam, right? So when you want to join this channel right now, Shieldy is going to ask for a common math problem. It will say 2 + 2 = what? Right? You have to type in 4. But these bots were typing in, instead of 4, they were typing in this command for this our bot, the Wax bot, saying, create new account. So even though Shieldy was banning them, these bots were creating accounts. It was crazy. So finally, they figured out some solution. And I think it's working now. We didn't see any bots so far. The new solution that we pushed, it seems to be working. But it's always a game, right? I'm sure they will break this, whatever patch that we...
How many accounts are you seeing being created?
Pardon?
How many accounts are being created?
Oh, I think so far maybe 35 or 40. Out of that, maybe 20 accounts were bots. We turned off quite early because I could see that the bots were creating one after the other. So I had to turn this bot off for a minute. And then we went and had a small fix. And they overran that fix. So we had to fix it again. So right now, it seems to be working. So now the people who are creating seems to be the real people. So we will see how long this holds. But it's good. These attacks are good because that's how we get better, right?
Yeah, I get stronger. As long as they happen while you're awake as well, right? Not sleeping in the middle of the night.
Yes. It was. I was watching it, and I was recording a small a video tutorial about how to create an account, and I saw that these accounts are created one after the other. And I'm thinking, why so many people are coming all at once? Then they're not people; they're bots. It was
Hey, well, nice to get that account creator up. Not bad for a surgeon. I have to put it out there. Hey? The surgeon taking us through the smart contract account on blocks. That's pretty impressive, Michael. I love it.
Well, that's all the news I had. So I'm going to turn this over to Jona now. So Jona is going to talk about the AtomicAssets and the NFT creator that he's creating and the block explorer for that and the trading market for that. He has big plans, Jona. We are excited to hear.
Let's hear it.
So let me start sharing the screen for you, and you are on.
Yeah, so I start this basically where we started, because originally we didn't plan on making like a new NFT standard. We were just planning on building our own games, NFT-based games. And so we explored like the options that were available, and obviously Simple Assets being the main one supported on Wax, or at least the one the Wax team used for their own VGO skins or NFTs. We looked at that, but there were some things that we weren't really happy with, and some things that we thought we couldn't work around. So we ended up deciding that we would just create a new standard that we believe solves all these problems, has some very cool features, and helps us and hopefully also others to build cool games and cool dApps on top of it. So I'll go over the key differences that like AtomicAssets does differently from Simple Assets and dGoods. Those are the two big ones that we looked at. We also looked at the others, but they didn't really see any use, and so I'll just compare to dGoods and Simple Assets. The by far biggest one is that there are no RAM costs for users at all. dGoods also does this, and Simple Assets doesn't. And we think this is a big problem, because if you have assets that cost maybe 600 bytes of RAM, but especially with Wax Cloud Wallet accounts, they all only start with like 3 kilobytes of RAM. So they have 5 assets and they're out of RAM. What do they do then? You have to explain them how to use RAM, how to buy it, what it's used for. They have to spend money on it. It's just very inconvenient. And we believe having the creator of the assets, so the dApp, pay for the RAM, and then that never changes. They all always remain the payer for the RAM. It's significantly superior, we believe, at least for the vast majority of applications. Then the second one, and this is not so like sexy for users, but it's important for developers, is that the RAM cost in general is just lower. We have a custom serialization that is more or less based on how Google's protobuf works, but a little bit adjusted to our needs. That is compared to dGoods and Simple Assets. They both just store strings. Most asset creators use JSON formatted strings, which are human readable, but they are inefficient. And instead, we just serialize all the data and then store them as bytes directly. And that can save easily 30 to 60, 70% of RAM costs, which is like a big deal if you're a dApp with high ambitions. And it's a difference between paying $5,000 for RAM or only $2,000. That's like a big difference. So we believe that's important, and it's more or less free. There are no big negatives to this. Then the third thing, and this is something that the users will definitely like, is that we have inbuilt trade offers. So trade offers like you're used to seeing from Steam, for example, where I just say, I offer you some of my assets for some of your assets. And if you accept the offer, the assets get exchanged. And it's simply one single action to create an offer, one single action to accept the offer. And that is compared to Simple Assets or dGoods, where you would have to most likely first transfer the assets to a third party or to a smart contract, and that smart contract would then handle all the transfers. So it's easier, first of all, and also users keep full ownership over their assets while they're in an offer. So if I offer you an asset with AtomicAssets in a trade, and until you accept the offer, I have still full ownership over the asset. It's we think that's pretty convenient. And then the fourth thing, and that is like especially important for games or DApps that are in a way interactive with their assets, is that we have notifications for smart contracts, so on-chain smart contract notifications. That means if you're a DApp and you want to, for example, keep track in your internal game logic who currently owns an asset, you have a 100% guarantee if that asset is transferred, you get a notification. So you can rely on that. And that is compared to simple assets. They have notifications, but they're done as the deferred transactions. And deferred transactions aren't guaranteed. So it's hard for a DApp or a game to really rely on that for their game logic, because there could be attacks or just bad luck, in which case deferred transactions are dropped. That is like especially important for the type of games we are planning on building. Without that, it's close to impossible. And with that, it's like really simple and clean. Yeah, and then that's like the big differences or advantages of AtomicAssets compared to the others. And then you mentioned it earlier in the Wax Labs or Wax Worker Proposal System. We submitted a project for our AtomicAssets hub. So the hub combines multiple features, which is an explorer. So the explorer will just allow users to see assets, to see their attributes, to see where they are transferred, who owns them, all that stuff. It will have a marketplace. Well, every user can list their assets on the marketplace, and quite crucially, we will also make this marketplace liquidity available to DApp developers. So if you're developing a DApp, you can just use our marketplace. That means you also tap into our liquidity, and there aren't like a lot of different spread out marketplaces, but there hopefully is just one marketplace. The marketplace will take very low fees, which is 2% per sale, and those 2% do not go to us, but instead they go to whichever marketplace does the sale in the end. So if you create an own marketplace separate from ours, use our marketplace contract, you will get all the fees. We don't get anything. That's also important if we want to if we want other DApps to use our marketplace. We think it's unrealistic that we can just say, yeah, we take 5% and please still use our marketplace. That doesn't work. So we don't take any fixed cut. And then the hub will also feature a trading interface. Like I said, AtomicAssets has these inbuilt trade offers, and the trading interface will allow users to create offers, to see their offers that they sent, and also the offers that they received. It will be hopefully familiar, especially to the users that previously used Steam, because it's a very similar structure. I'm sure most users will recognize it if they previously had some part in trading of, for example, CSGO or Dota items. And then it's also one of the things that I think a lot of people are excited for. We will also have an NFT creator. So with the NFT creator, we basically provide a simple interface for users to create their AtomicAssets. So because it's just a standard at the core, every user can create assets even without our interface, of course. But with the interface, we will make it simple. especially also for users that aren't as tech savvy as maybe we are, as maybe some of the early adopters of crypto are. And that actually brings me to another thing, which is that we partnered with Dallas Rushing for the Atomic Assets Hub. Dallas Rushing is, I'm sure some people will know him already. He is one of the guys behind the Karma social network that also runs on Wax. And he's very talented when it comes to user experience and design in general. So we partnered with him to build this hub, and we're pretty close to being finished with the design phase. And it's impressive what a difference it makes, because my partner Fabian, he's a developer. I'm a developer. We're both not designers. If we had done it ourselves, it wouldn't be nearly as good as it is now. And that will be a game changer, we believe, in terms of usability. Yeah, that's basically it.
No, thanks for that update. That is cool.
If I understand this correctly, then Jona, so the main difference is the creator pays for the RAM, and that makes it easier for everyone, right? So the user doesn't have to pay for the RAM for these NFTs.
That's one of the really big ones. That's like the initial reason we started building our own standard, and then we believe we added some other cool features, but that is very crucial.
Now walk me through an example, for example. So let's say one of the use cases that we might use it maybe next month or a couple of months is using it as a conference ticket, right? You have many people coming into conference, and each ticket is an NFT, but it may have a slightly different number, maybe like a different serial number, right? So you want to create maybe 50 tickets. Everything will be the same, like the agenda, the speakers, and the front of the NFT. Only the numbers would be different, the ticket numbers or the serial numbers. So how would I go about creating this? So if you have this NFT creator, I can just go in there, put in my requirement, and I can just create without any coding required.
Yeah, you don't need any coding experience. And actually, what you mentioned now is something that we also do to save RAM, which is that we offer presets. So you mentioned if you have 50 tickets for this conference, that means most of the metadata will be the same. So the conference name will be the same, the date will be the same, the speakers will be the same. But there will be maybe a unique ID attached to each ticket to identify it, because you don't want to mix them up. You want to have a track record of each ticket. And what you would do without Atomic Assets, with other standards, is just you would save this data 50 times. That's obviously very inefficient. What you can do with Atomic Assets is that you create a preset. In this preset, you define all the attributes that your assets will share. You define them once, so they are stored once, and then our assets they will reference this preset. They will more or less automatically have the attributes of this preset, but you don't have to store them again and again and again. So it saves a lot of RAM. It's totally supported in our NFT creator as well. So once again, you don't have to code anything yourself. You can do that with our NFT creator. It will be very intuitive. I hope, at least for me, it looks very intuitive how we did it. And yeah, you can just go to the NFT creator, enter the attributes that you want your asset to have, like name, image, and all other attributes that you want, and basically just click the create button, sign a transaction, and you have those assets.
Something that I never considered was the whole concert ticket thing, Michael. And I'm sure it's it's obviously very relevant. A concert ticket's a consumable, right? So if I'm paying for the RAM to create the tickets for my concert, after the concert, do we burn those NFTs and then like retrieve the RAM?
What you could, for example, do is if you said like if you want to enter this concert, you have to transfer the NFT to whoever to your account. Then you let the people in, and you can burn the NFTs. We support burning NFTs fully, so all the RAM will be recovered if you burn them.
Okay. Yeah. I know this is something near and dear to you, Michael. The whole RAM consumption on a blockchain.
It makes it very, very, very nice. I mean, if anyone can create this with a nice UX, it will get lot of use. Because I can think of, at least for me, I can think of we usually organize many conferences, so I can very easily use a NFT creator to print maybe 100 NFTs and distribute that to people. Now, Ras, there was this new chain that launched, right? The FIO network. Now, is there a way to integrate this for payment? Now, they say that each address is an NFT there, right?
Yeah, you got, or there's a domain, like your address is bound to a domain that you own. Yeah, we'd have to, I mean, I don't know, Jonas, if you know more about it, but we'd have to get Luke to weigh in on that, to be honest. But
if there is a way to, I don't know, maybe integrate with this portal, because sometimes you may have to charge for these tickets, right? And there should be a way for receiving payment. And if it can be done without using these long crypto addresses, it will be nice. But this is I'm thinking like many, maybe a couple of years from now, right? first we got to launch the portal and the NFT creator. But this is blockchain space. So a couple of years actually means just a few months, and you accomplish like a couple of years worth of real world development. So when do you think this will be ready, Jona, the NFT creator?
We will publish the hub as a whole, so we won't like start with just one. We will publish it all at the same time, and our WAX Lab, so Worker Proposal System project, ends in around 2 months, a little more than that. So that is like our deadline. We definitely want to have it done by then, hopefully even sooner. Not like it won't be there in a week. So it's definitely closer to those 2 months than right now. But by then it should be ready. We're on track right now. So
as Ras was saying, so once this conference is over, we can burn these NFTs, get the RAM back. Right?
Yeah.
Perfect. And all this will be in the user interface. So you don't need to. It's like no code experience, right?
Yeah. And actually, speaking about burning assets, that's also something, another feature that we added which is backing assets, as we call it, with tokens. So you could create an asset, so an NFT, and then attach or back it with, let's say, 100 WAX tokens. And that means if this asset gets burned, then the owner who burns it will get back those 100 WAX tokens, which opens up a lot of interesting possibilities, because it means that you can give your NFTs a minimum value, because people know, like, even if I don't want this NFT anymore, and if there's no other use case, I can still just burn it and free up those back tokens again.
No, my wife, she's an artist, and she has lot of these paintings. And I told her about this, the NFTs, and she wants to take pictures of the art that she already has created and wants to create an NFT from that. Now that should be easy, right? So you just
that's like the simplest case probably.
So you just take the picture, you drop it in this the portal that you have, and then you have a digital form of it.
Yeah. And that actually, like, tokenizing art is something that we see, like, in the Ethereum space. We already see it, and I personally think that's that's a very interesting use case, because artists could, for example, if they're somewhat famous, maybe have a following on Instagram, they could say, look, I have just created this new painting, and I have created maybe 20 assets, 20 NFTs that somehow have this painting as the image, and if you buy it, you can first of all support it, support me as an artist, and secondly, because there are only 20 assets, and you know there are only 20, which is also something that is possible with AtomicAssets. So like having a fixed supply, you know there's only 20, it has some rarity. And yeah, once again, it opens up a lot of possibilities, because maybe you could then make a post on Instagram saying, yeah, look guys, I just created this new painting. If you want to buy one of 20 copies, and there will only ever be 20 copies, you can do it at this link. And I could totally see that working. I could see that people would be interested in this.
Now, Ross, you're the CTO of Emanate, right? Do you see some synergies between what you're doing and here? Because I'm sure there are a lot of art in Emanate, right?
Oh, I know if Sean's watching, he's got his mind going crazy, the CEO of Emanate. Emanate's the real benefit with at its core functionality is ability for artists to collaborate with each other, removing any of the intermediaries. So we could create a song together, agree on the percentage equity we each have in that song, sign it on a smart contract, send it into the platform, and as people listen by the second, you would be able to, the two of you would get your share, all done via contract. So that's the core of Emanate, and of course it's growing as Sean gets more ideas about how to make it more useful to up and coming artists and independent artists. There may be something that he could think of. Maybe I produce a song and I tokenize it, and you can buy a copy of the song, right? I suspect that in the future that might be something that could be cool. I'm not an artist, but I would suspect that would be an excellent way to ensure you get recurring revenue. Because the other thing was with the NFT, Jona, was I believe that when you on-sell it, so I've got the NFT and I on-sell it, it's possible for the creator to get a clip of that on sale, like a percentage of that.
Yeah.
And so like as it goes down, almost like a proverbial pyramid, but they still get a remuneration from that song. Or artist or art piece or whatever. Yeah, I always thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, so because like you can of course transfer the assets freely, and if you just transfer them, we don't know what you're doing. So technically you could sell it on like a gray market or on another market, but we encourage any market to support this. And within the main standard contract, users can specify how much of a cut they would like to receive. And our market will certainly honor this. And we hope that if someone creates a new market, they will also do that.
What about leasing of an NFT, where I don't want to sell it, but I just want to loan it to you for a period of time?
It's not supported in the main contract, and I'm not a fan of having it in the main contract. I think that's like too niche. Okay. You could have it like with an intermediary contract. You could probably do something like this. I know Simple Assets added it in their main contract. I'm not a big fan of it. I could see some use cases of it, but not enough to justify putting it in the main standard.
I remember
what's Jona was this DNFTs. The reason that came about was there is a project called Zeptogram. I don't know if you know about this. So it's based in, where are they based? Sweden. It's that company is from Sweden. So they are somewhat similar to Emanate, but different in the sense that instead of selling music, they sell the intellectual property of the music itself. Because someone wrote this song, right? That's an IP. So what So they created this DNFT in partnership with another firm, mainly to sort of have fractional ownership of this IP, because that one song may be worth maybe $100,000. So if I don't have $100,000, maybe I can buy a share for $100 and still own this IP, and I can get royalties from that IP from that musician. I think that was the idea for the project. Now, I'm sure there is a way to do this with AtomicAssets, right? You don't necessarily need another standard for this.
Yes, exactly. And this is one of the things that would be like very, very much doable in a third-party contract. So in this case, if you wanted to have fractional ownership, you could have like a smart contract that manages this fractional ownership. You give this smart contract the ownership over the asset, and then within the smart contract, you would manage how the owners can interact with it. Maybe you need like more than 50% agreement, and then you can transfer it. Maybe it works differently. So that's certainly possible. Although I don't see it being a big thing immediately. It could certainly become a thing in the future.
Yes, it's more complicated than the common use cases, right? That was a niche area. I think.
Yes, in general, a lot of things can be abstracted out of the smart contract, more or less. Also, because we have these on-chain notifications, you can have most functionalities, pretty much all functionalities that I could think of, that you could have within the standard itself, you can also have as a third-party contract. And I think that's the better solution, keeping the main standard contract as light as possible, or not as light as possible, but light to an extent where you don't overload it. I think that's a good idea, and that's what we did with AtomicAssets as well. We didn't want to overload the main contract, if it's possible to have the same functionality in a third-party contract as well.
So let me see if anyone has any questions. I don't see any questions. Any questions from your side, Ross?
I'm very excited about the whole idea of non-fungible tokens. It's something that brings it so real in my mind, and I've always been interested in blockchain from a reality side of things. Not like, oh, we've got these fantastic ideas on how you're going to make money in the future. I love it when there is a demonstrable way that we can prove value of blockchain through to the general public. And I think everybody can get behind the idea of a token that represents a physical or digital asset that's unique, and they own it. And I love it. And more marketplaces like this, and what you're doing, Jona, it's freaking awesome. One of the main reasons why we even got involved in Wax in the beginning is because I could see that was the angle that it was going in. Creating these marketplaces, helping people to trade real world items as well, which is awesome. I just want to take a segue quickly. I saw a presentation by Damien from Artam Games in Korea the one year. And he showed, this is like where I think it's going to go eventually, right? He gave an example of the movie Ready Player One, right? I don't know if you've watched that. It's got not actors, they've got characters from all different universes, right? Right. So you've got Marvel, and you've got freaking TV adverts, and you've got movies, and you've got everything, right? All in the one movie. And he said, can you imagine how difficult it would have been to broker that deal? When you created that movie, how would you ever have managed to go to every single one of those studios, companies, artists, whatever, and get the ability to use their IP? So what if those characters could be bound to an NFT, and all we needed to do on-chain in contract is lease those NFTs for the movie, right? And then everybody would get their equitable share of the movie, whatever, however movies make money, selling tickets and plastic toys and that kind of thing. And that was when I was really like, Oh my word! Can you imagine? That if we could get to that, I bet whoever it was that produced that movie would have been okay. I signed me up, because it took us 5 years to broker this, and there's a room there with a pallet full of contracts that everybody had to sign. That kind of stuff. I loved that. I also loved the idea about potentially leasing out, like you playing a dungeon game. You've got a magical sword. You spent so much time building up all of the mana and everything in the sword. And it's a badass sword, but you're not playing the game 24/7. What if you could lease that sword to somebody else while you were sleeping, because it's such an awesome sword. They're going to go do a raid, give them the sword, I like that. I like that idea. I like the idea of you being able to then potentially sell that sword in game on chain rather than sitting in somebody's database somewhere, and then get you banned and then you lose your sword, rather have it somewhere in an immutable contract. And that's what gets me so excited about NFTs. And what you're doing is fantastic, man. So thanks for that, and thanks for the update.
There's a question here. So it's about conference tickets, or if there's a concert tickets, how do you check the concert ticket at the door, and how is the value transferred to the hardware? Well, I think how to check at the door. Jona, do you have any idea? So we have the NFTs, but I think you can get the NFT on your mobile phone, right? Can it have some type of, how do you check somebody in with the NFT into the concert hall?
So, just the first question, how you check the NFT is, if you just mean verifying that the NFT is the proper one, that's pretty easy. So with normal tickets, if you just have a paper ticket, you can fake those, and that's a problem for concerts and concert organizers. You can't fake an NFT. That's one of the big advantages. And then if you would do it with current technology that is out right now, it's probably going to take a minute. You would probably log into your Wax Cloud Wallet account and or our hub with your Wax Cloud Wallet account, so you can do it on your phone as well, and then transfer the NFT of that ticket to the concert organizer, and that's immediately visible for the concert organizer, and then he could let you in. So in the future, you could, of course.
So when you buy the NFT, you pay it to whoever is selling, right? So you got the NFT, that's the ticket. Now, when you go to the concert, you're sending this NFT to the concert organizer, so they got the NFT, and you are checked in, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you could probably, or you could definitely have a phone app that makes this very easy. That you can do it within seconds. That's possible for sure. It doesn't exist right now, but you could make it exist.
Well, yeah, I think this is the foundation. From this, you have to build this app for this.
Yes.
So whenever the concert will come, not for a year at least, I think, because of the COVID-19.
All right, is that
Yeah, some time.
But whenever we start the concerts, maybe 6 months from now. But that's an app someone can very easily build. So it's just a matter of transferring. Now the payment-wise, I think the vendor would probably pay to the organizer to get the tickets. That's how right now it's done, right? The ticket, what is that? The ticket hub or the stub hub, they buy the tickets in bulk and then they sell to the people. Right? So I think the money they will pay the money to the concert organizer, and we are, as a consumer, you're just taking the ticket, going to the concert, and just sending the NFT to the organizer's wallet. And I think I understand the flow of this. So that's a good question.
Yeah, the great thing about having it as an NFT also is if you want to buy it on a third-party market from someone who has previously bought it from the vendor and now decides he doesn't want to go to the concert, he wants to sell it. Like if you do that right now today, you also always have to worry about is this ticket that I'm getting, is it actually real? So if I turn up at the concert and show the concert guys my ticket, will I actually be able to get in? with an NFT, you're 100% sure if you have that NFT, you know it's the real one. You know you will get it.
Do you know that there's a documentary on, or a segment on dirty money on Netflix at the moment, where it speaks all about the underground ticket scalping businesses? And it's pretty bad, man. A lot of these ticket places, they purposely inflate the prices. The artists can't believe, where all the diehard fans are, because the auditorium is not full, but the tickets are sold out, right?
Yeah.
And then they bleed them in at like an inflated price. So I wonder if NFTs would have a mechanism to protect from that kind of thing. Mike, you talk about bots. As these tickets go on sale, these guys have got bots, and they just buy up, 30% of all the tickets, and then try and sell them off in the underground market with a huge markup. So I wonder if the NFTs will have a mechanism for us to be a little bit more sure that the person that's getting the ticket is a real person and not a bot.
There's another question: trading between games. Ross, do you have an idea about this? You were talking about games, right?
I've actually asked this question a few times. Now, I'm not a game developer, but I'm told that even if we agree on the same kind of NFT standard between two separate games, you've got the whole problem with the game's mechanics being different, right? So it's like not an easy problem. Like you can't suddenly take your dragon slaying slaw into Sonic the Hedgehog. It's just not that's not part of the game. So that is apparently a huge hurdle, I'm told. But technically they could agree on a standard and then actually have them move between the game, but it might just not work because of the mechanics. That's what I hear.
Yeah, I think for that to work, what probably would need to happen is that a big company, or at least a bigger company, creates like maybe an initial game for their assets, and that game has some sort of setting, maybe like a medieval setting with swords and armor, and then this big game developer or somewhat big game developer basically says, if you create a game that uses our assets, we will promote you. Because then I could see smaller game developers, then they would have like there would be like a mutual benefit. Both guys would benefit. The small game developer would benefit because their game will actually get some attention, and the big game developer benefits because their assets are being used, and there are more ways for the assets to be used. So the assets will be more valuable, and the big game developer will also make more money with that. That is something that I could see working, just like the idea that you have completely separate studios and they will all use the assets of the other studios. I don't think that's going to happen, but with one big organizer of all this, I think it could very well happen.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Jona. It's 3 a.m. in Munich, and Jona woke up for us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jona. Great.
So you can rest, and now we will go. I'll switch over to Ross. He's going to introduce the Torben and Rewired. Go on.
All right. Okay, I am going to give you a quick overview because I know that Torben's chomping at the bit about how EOSphere came to Rewired, right? So EOSphere, we founded EOSphere Pty Ltd, Australian-based company, just before the launch of the EOS mainnet in 2018. Our core mantra was to ensure adoption of EOSIO, right? That's kind of like where it started. EOSIO, we loved Dan Larimer's work. We had worked with Steam. We had worked with BitShares. We were involved right the way in the beginning with Invictus Technologies, right? So what we did is we decided to do something a lot more legit. We created a real business and we went out evangelizing EOS for the launch. So we did like a meetup tour around Australia, in all of the major states, trying to be that champion and advocate for EOS and bring everybody on board. It was during the token sale or whatever. Not that we were selling tokens, but we wanted people to be aware of this amazing platform that had high performance, and it was a great place for you to build your dApps. Something that happened along the way is everybody kept asking us, Oh, we want to build a dApp. Can you help us? Oh, what do you think of this idea? Will it work? How can blockchain help us in our real world business, right? Brendon on our team, who's not here, he worked quite closely with EOSIO in the early days. And Torben and I go way back many years, longer than Torben can probably care to remember. But we were like in primary school together, right? And Torben is very, very strong in business and enterprise startup space. So what happened is we thought, let's actually offer the service. So we created a split of EOSIO called EOSIO Dev, right? Where we provided consultancy, project management, and building of actual dApps. As time kind of went on, we found that a lot of our clients weren't able to get funding because they were associated to a block producer. In this case, obviously EOSIO. So we thought, okay, you know what? We are going to be very, very focused on the enterprise space. We understand that that's where blockchain is going. We understand that that is what even the creators of EOSIO had prophesized for the application and the use of EOSIO. So we decided to create a new business. So it stands as a separate entity and it has been rebranded. So EOSIO, the block producer, still does infrastructure, history services, governance, oracles, all the good stuff. And in this case, Wax Guild, our EOSIO Guild is our block producer for Wax. And then Rewired.one was created, which is a self-standing separate business that myself and my co-owner, Shelley, are co-owners with Torben and Brendon. So we actually have a separate business that is born out of EOSIO, but is purely focused on getting enterprise adoption of building dApps and projects, etc. And now I'd love to hand over to Torben because we've been doing some amazing stuff over the last year. And Torben give us some insights on where Rewired.one, where the trajectory is of that. Thanks. Torben. With the green screen and you're on mute. I can't hear you. Right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Great. Thanks so much for having us on, Michael. Good to see you and good to meet your audience. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about something that's probably a little bit different in the enterprise space as Ross did that introduction. Really kind of the passion around bringing traditional projects to the corporate world on a public blockchain like EOSIO, but also being, a very much open source platform that allows us to be able to build, also private chains, which is something that we're starting to see in the marketplace. So as Ross said, it's been an awesome journey. We've gone, from kind of speaking to people that knew the block producer side, right through now to serving big corporates. If you go to our website, Rewired.one, you'll see some of our testimonials. What I'd like to do today is just take you through one of those case studies and just share with you what's really happening where we're seeing enterprise adoption of a blockchain. And I think that's super exciting for EOSIO, but it's also exciting for blockchain in general, because an adoption in that space just overall supports the community. It supports, the technology, and it supports the development of blockchain, as we start moving forward. So, and feel free to ask questions as we go along, but I'll leave some time, Michael, probably at the end to do that. So, so what we've seen working really well, and let's be honest, I've just literally right now seen a post on LinkedIn where, there's so much confusion about whether blockchain is going to get all of that mainstream adoption. And one of the challenges that we have, and I'm sharing this because I think that it's a good way to talk to your own, communities and your own kind of customers, etc., is that, blockchain is not crypto, and blockchain is just one implementation. Crypto, is just one implementation of blockchain. And so there's this huge need to educate the market, and there's this huge need to kind of avoid confusion. And So one way we've been doing that is when we engage enterprise clients, is we start with a business case, and that's primarily because we want to do a couple of things. We want to make sure that any business, not just a corporate business, but any business actually has something that's going to be successful. And in the early days, we actually did I think about 50 phone calls. And most of the time we said, we send people back saying, try this or try that. And so what we've been doing is playing a slow kind of engagement in the market where we haven't been taking all the projects. But our first engagement is to do that business case to say, is this a real world thing? Are we doing something that's actually valuable? And so that's the kind of first piece. And then secondly, what we do is to move more into a proof of concept, which might be a 4-week rapid delivery project. And we recently did that one. And why that's important is it starts to build adoption. It starts to build buy-in. You can imagine within enterprise, we've got to get a lot of people on board. There's quite a lot of confusion exactly what value blockchain can bring. And so we do that, and it starts to basically plant a seed. That proof of concept is a seed that then starts getting people interested. But more importantly, we get to get a product up and running in 4 weeks, and people can start to see the value, and they can start to see the benefits. Next step is to then, and this is what happened with one of our clients, is they just started asking for tons of projects. And in fact, so much so that we had to, speak to them about well, can we do a few less projects, or let's focus on these other projects. So we're now running some interesting project where we're, it's a much longer project. It's a 9-month engagement. And we're actually building part of a core system which will prove blockchain end to end, but without all of the risk of maybe taking over a major internal system. But again, that's a stepping stone towards, bigger projects and bigger programs. And so, yeah, we're really excited about that. We are doing all kinds of projects, not just enterprise projects, but these are great ways to get started, with a proof of concept. We always encourage people to get something out quickly and start to develop that.
Can you mention some of the use case that we're seeing at the moment, like the current engagement? What's the use case that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's evolving all the time, which is actually a lot of fun because we just see things coming out all the time. One of the things that we're seeing, not just in this use case, but everywhere, is things like what I'm starting to call real-time regulatory compliance. And there are a lot of businesses out there that require that regulatory requirement. And the thing is, businesses spend a lot of money trying to get that regulation right. But if you put all of that data on the blockchain, regulators can start to trust that because it's immutable. And they can, and if that information is exposed to a regulator, then there's no need for detailed investigations, detailed engagement. They can start to see some of that regulation up front. Businesses that have traditionally given people CD-ROMs, because obviously once you write a CD-ROM, you can't change it. So this has actually been around for a while, but now blockchain allows us to do things that we sort of used to be able to do, and create that immutability that people can trust the data and can really trust what's actually happening there. So there's a lot around trust. We have a big strategy around partnering with businesses like Diffuse. We see future around NFT platforms, and we're starting to see that with some of our clients. In particular, we're quite open to partnering with different products that maybe we can relaunch under different brands, or creating new partnerships whereby we get to lab, like the worker proposal, we get to create maybe a really small MVP and actually take that to market and get people excited about that. So yeah, that's some of the things happening, right?
I think, and you would have picked up on this, as soon as you're dealing with enterprise, it means that there's NDA. So you can hear how Torben's explaining it to you, but he's walking on the line because he can't tell you exactly which clients we're working with at the moment. And just to elaborate a little bit more about what when he talks about compliance, for instance, if we were working with a company that did gaming, right, we would be able to demonstrably prove real-time number generation, all of the actual payments that happened, all of the interactions with whatever user, and we could provide that information to the Australian Security and Investment Commission, and they could have that kind of information real-time and available. So it's not like, oh, when they come around once a year, it's another 2 months for us to collate all the information. It's literally, you guys can real-time see exactly what's happening. And they see that as a massive reduction in administration. So I see the whole automation side of things really come into play. So it's almost like you remove the middleman and then just gain so much performance as being able to roll out new products, be compliant, and make sure your business ticks all the boxes from the Securities Commission, that kind of thing. And it's across multiple industries, right? We even see the same thing in the mining space, where we can effectively ensure that all the workers are compliant, the miners running in compliance, because we have an immutable database. It's kind of like back to blockchain, what it was really good for.
Yeah, and as Ross said,
let me ask you a basic question. How do you approach an enterprise? For example, see, in the medical world, there are these medications that need to be transported in a certain temperature. They need to be, if they're exposed to too much heat, they lose their potency and they may not be useful. Now there are existing systems that do this. There is the end-to-end transportation in some type of secure vehicles. But there was some project on Ethereum that I remember. They had these RFIDs which record this temperature and they write that into the blockchain. And in that way, there is some immutable record that the product was transferred from point A to point B without losing any of without going beyond the parameters that were set. Now, that's a use case, but how would you approach an enterprise with something like that? Because they're already doing something which works, right? How do you go to them and say, I got some ideas. Can we do an MVP for you?
Yeah, that's a super good question, and there's probably no. I would say there's probably no, perfect answer to that. Mostly, we've been approaching each situation differently. Supply chain side, one place to start, or where we're actually already starting, in fact, last couple of weeks, especially with what's going on in the world at the moment, what we've seen is a need for way more understanding of supply chains. So if we talk about the medical medicine needing to be at a certain temperature, for example, there's that whole chain of custody that's needed, and whether that's tracking a GPS, tracking the temperature, tracking who signed it off, whether it moved from this supplier to this next supplier, all of that stuff, as you said, is already currently mostly being recorded. But what we're seeing is that people don't always feel that data can be trusted, and so that's probably a good place to start. But trusting the data might not be enough, for example, to approach an enterprise. So we need to start looking at, well, how do we increase the value of that data? Well, if a regulator is looking at that data, suddenly the value is way more because they can trust that data. It was written once, nobody tampered with it. It was there, and so the value starts going up because obviously a business or a supply chain would get fined if they didn't meet certain compliance requirements. Something that we're looking at now is we're actually seeing this in the world currently, where they're looking at how would you fund a particular point in a supply chain. And so this comes down to social responsibility, which then takes it to a whole nother level. for example, Apple might require, you know, a provenance supply chain. In other words, they may need to know that this product has come from a good source. You know, that there's not been any, you know, poor labor practices, or it's gone through a conflict region. So we would then start seeing that data and the interaction becoming very important, and even a way to fund that supply chain, for example, to distribute funds to a particular point in the supply chain, so that maybe you can increase the production of a supply chain. That's what's happening at the moment. People need medical stuff, but how do I stimulate a supply chain? So that's kind of going quite deep, but I think that's an example of a strategy one would have to think about, is how do I really increase the value of blockchain for a business?
Typically people approach us, Michael, if that was your question as well. You know, it's not like I saw an enterprise, oh wait, I've got an idea, let me go and try and sell it. If you see on our Rewired.one site, we actually offer a free 30-minute consult, so anybody can come up and talk to us about what they're trying to do, and we give them some really solid advice. And that's how we picked up some of these bigger deals. It's guys that had already been following, and it typically come from the CTO side of things, guys that have been following what's going on in blockchain, heard about EOS. One of our clients actually was running on VeChain, right? And it ended up being so expensive for them to, for any of the transactions, which are kind of like controlled by like an authority. It's like a board that decides how expensive transactions are, right? And so, you know, they start thinking about using other blockchains for it to be cheaper. But our biggest project at the moment was zero blockchain already. They already had an existing real world solution using a database type construct, and they wanted to bring more automation and be able to deliver more of these services quicker that are compliant. So that's what we're working on, and they came to us in the beginning. But I suggest anybody listening in, if they've got an idea and want to know how to go about it, if their business has an idea, would like us to do a bit of consult, encourage them to go to Rewired.one and have a chat with us to see what we can do for you. And on that same note, you know, we really want to build something for Wax inside the worker proposal system, like absolutely. But we want to make sure that it is something of value, and it's not necessarily us from a commercial space. You know, we just want to add some value. And we would love to hear some ideas. If anybody's got a great idea for something that you think would be awesome to run in the Wax space, we absolutely game on for that as well.
Yeah, and Ross, you were talking about physical NFT stuff. I mean, we did speak to a client a little while ago who they were actually selling, you know, shoes, for example, trendy designer clothing, you know, that kind of thing. So I think we're going to see some of that, and also people might start getting interested in who's actually worn that gear, you know. And so on the blockchain, you can say, hey, you know, these 3 famous people wore this these sneakers or this T-shirt, and actually suddenly you get this, you know, value increase. And then through maybe Jona's platform, that could be traded, and people can actually, you know, actually start to explore whole new value chains through that. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions? I don't see any. So we have gone over an hour. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jona. Thank you, Ross. And thank you, Torben. It has been wonderful meeting all of you today. And we will have something exciting next month. So see you all next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Cheers, Jona. Cheers, Mike.
Bye.
Cheers, Torben.
Good night. Bye-bye.